In this video tutorial, we'll go over Phoenix's pure PDF-based step and repeat workflow. Let's start by creating a new job and adding in a press. Next thing we want to do is import an artwork file. Let's just do this by drag and drop. So I'll go and find the file we want to import and just drag it in. And we'll pick a rectangular label in this case. So drag it in, you can see that Phoenix automatically creates a new product based off that artwork file. If we go into product view here, you can see that it's set up the size of it according to the trim box, and it's also set the bleed according to the bleed box in the PDF. So now we're going to want to repeat this label on the layout. Let's just drag it in, and we'll go up to the Tools menu here and click on Step and Repeat. That'll pop up the Step and Repeat panel, which has various options to let us allow us to repeat this piece of artwork on the sheet. Let's just apply a preset we have here. Okay, so this preset is using Autofill, and it's using everything packed together, which basically Autofill just means it's going to place as many items as it can on this sheet. And you can see there are various different options here. So for example, we're packing right now. We could do the horizontal expand, and that'll expand everything on the sheet like this. And we also have a wrapping option, which, let's see, if we're doing a stagger like this, first we'll apply a stagger, and now if we wrap horizontally, you can see that we can create a seamless repeat that'll wrap right around the sheet. So you can see, if I actually double click here on the repeat, and then go into this individual item, you can see that we're actually wrapping this item from one end to the other. That's what you can do with wrapping, and that can be done in both directions. So say if we were staggering in the vertical, we could wrap in the vertical, and now we have items that are wrapping from top to the bottom like that. There are also various other options here, like the gap type. In the case of rectangular products, probably the edge-to-edge gap or the center gap will make the most sense. You can also do things like change the head turn, so you can do head turn for the rows or change the head turn for the columns. I actually do rows and columns like this. And you can also do things like change the initial rotation of the product in the layout. Another option that's probably quite useful is bleeds. So in the product item itself, you can specify the bleed, but if you're working with a product like this and you actually just want to change the bleed on the fly here with the repeat, you can say create bleeds. And what this will do is it'll set up the bleeds so that everything is just resolved in the case of rectangular products. So let's just go to a little bit of a simpler case here and pack things together. And you can see, so we've got, how about let's do a big bleed here. So you can see we've got a bleed, 6mm bleed all around here, all around the edges, but where the products actually meet up to each other, the bleed is actually, it's not overlapping them. The tool automatically figure out how to just make the bleeds butt up against each other. You can see if we, how about if we just decrease this a bit and say increase the gap size, you can see that this adjusts with the distance of the product. So it'll just make sure that nothing's overlapping in the case of rectangular products. One other part of this is also the sheet margins. So right now we're using the sheet margins. So you can see the dotted line on the sheet here, and that actually can just be specified with the media tool. But this will actually just use those margins for autofill. So we could actually say, okay, I don't want to use the sheet margins and just specify margins of our own. Say, for example, 0, like that, and possibly you can fit more items if you can actually print it that way. Or you can adjust the margins to some custom value that you want, but probably just the most useful would be just to use the sheet margins, just to get, in case you've set up your press correctly and you already know what margins are available. So that's how you can do a repeat with rectangular items. This tool actually also works with irregular items. So let's take a look at a job with an irregular product and see what that look like. I'll start a new job here and drag in a press again. And I'm going to go new product from artwork, and I will just grab a juice box sample here. Okay, so we've got a product here, and you can see that it's actually got an irregular shape. So the first thing we need to do here is when we create a product from an artwork, from PDF, you can see that the size is just set to the trim box. But if we created a repeat like this, then we're not going to get a very tightly nested repeat. We're not going to get quite what we want here. So what we actually need to work with this repeat is to actually get the correct die shape first. So let's go back to product view, and there's an option here to get die shape from artwork. So if we click that, then that'll pop up a dialog that'll allow us to select a spotting in the PDF that represents the die line. So we know that's Tilia cut in this case. We just go OK. Then it updates here, and you can see now we actually have the correct die shape for this product. And now we're ready to work with this, this product to repeat it, to actually tightly nest it. So let's drop it in here again, go back to the step and repeat tool, and apply something. Okay, so this isn't quite correct. And we could basically just adjust these values until we find something that works. I think, for example, we're probably going to have to change the vertical gap to try and get it more tightly together. But you'll notice we start getting overlapping sections here. And we'd have to go and actually probably, we could control this. We could say, okay, the first gap here is correct, but maybe the top one here needs to actually just be 0. And that might be more correct. Okay, now we don't have overlapping sections. You could go and tweak the values until you get something right. But what is actually, we have a tool that's much more useful for these type of irregular products, and that's the Smart Gap option here. So let's just switch both of these to Smart Gap, and let's say that we want just a 2mm gap, like so. Now that we do that, this will it'll actually look at the die line, and it'll figure out how to place these items so that there's a gap of exactly 2mm between the items. So let's just actually zoom in here, and you can see that we've got a gap of 2mm there. And if I actually go and change this, say I change the horizontal gap, you can see it's going to actually adjust that so that the gap between the die lines is exactly what we're specifying here. So this would require just a little bit of tweaking to find the right layout. I can just show you a preset I've got here that already has the correct values set up. So it just needed a bit of a stagger. And you can see quite easily we've got a layout that's tightly nested together, and the gaps are all correct, and there's no overlapping sections. So this is with a label, but actually using this tool you could also do carton layouts like this. So let's import a carton sample. In fact, let's use the one that we did earlier with the CAD workflow. And first thing, we need to get the correct die shape, so we'll get that from the spottings in the PDF. And now let's go add it to the layout and repeat it, and we're going to apply a preset here that already has some of the right settings, and there we go. You can see everything's tightly nested here, and we've got the correct layout very easily. So that's it for the step and repeat tool with a pure PDF based workflow in Phoenix.